Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Natalie and I run a stationery shop called DoodlesnTea. In today's video, we're going to be doing another Q&A video to wrap up February. And I thought since it was February, we would do a video talking about relationships and about our wedding that happened last year. So some of you guys asked me some questions and I have them written down again. And we're just gonna go through those videos today. So if you guys want to join in on more Q&As in the future, don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I also post it on my community page. Or just follow us on Instagram at DoodlesnTea because I also most likely will ask there first. And don't forget to like this video while you're at it because it'll help us out a lot. And once that's done, let's get started. So again, I have everything written down here along with a little bit of notes just to guide me along. But the first question was, how do you maintain trust in a long-distance relationship? I guess I didn't really talk about it too much on YouTube, but my husband and I were actually in a long-distance relationship for 3 years. So during that time, it's not that we were really far apart, but we were far apart enough that if we wanted to see each other, we'd have to get on a plane. One of the things that I think is really important in a long-distance relationship is communication. Communication is already very important in a relationship where you guys live in the same city, but especially when you're not living in the same city, I think it's really important to let your partner know like what you're up to and kind of set expectations as well leading up to the long distance, because your partner might not exactly know what you're thinking. They're not a mind reader. And I think one of the things is you can't expect them to know exactly what you're thinking. So be sure to communicate your emotions, what you're thinking, if there's anything that upset you. And another thing that I think is also very important, in my opinion, is letting them meet your friends of the opposite gender. For me, this was something that was really big in my opinion because I grew up having quite a few guy friends that I see a lot. And so I wanted my husband to be able to meet all of them because it's not like any of them would have ever had the potential, no offense. But I basically grew up with these people and I wanted my husband to meet them so that there weren't any room for miscommunication, any room for misunderstanding. That was the word I was looking for. And I think it was equally as important, and if not even more important, that my husband met my guy friends that I made after we started dating. It's not like there were a lot that I'm still very close with, but there were a couple that I became friends with as I went through different jobs. So I felt like it was really important for my husband to meet them, and they're also on good terms now. So setting boundaries, setting expectations, and communicating is very important to build trust in a long-distance relationship. The next question was, how do you guys overcome the not too happy moments together? So for my husband and I, we're the type that if we get into a disagreement, we both need to go our separate ways and have some space to ourselves, whether we go to calm down, like whether I'm here in this room or he's in his. We never try and tackle it in the heat of the moment because that's when a lot of emotions will still be fresh and it'll play into it. So we give some time and space to, kind of cool down first, and then after a while we will come together, we'll talk about it, and it's always helped us resolve any disagreements that we've had. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're in a disagreement or an argument, it's not that you're trying to win. I think once you feel like you're trying to win an argument, that's when it gets really dangerous because you're letting emotions play a part in what you're saying. Ultimately, in a relationship, you're trying to work together. You're not trying to step on one person and climb out victorious. And I think keeping that mindset will help neutralize a lot of feelings of anger or sadness that you have towards your partner. The next question was difference between dating and married life. For us, it was a very big difference because, you know, long distance to seeing each other every single day. I think one of the big adjustments that we had to make was meshing our lifestyles together. When we were still in the dating phase and even the engagement phase, we were still long distance. So during that time, we were still kind of in the flow of how our lifestyle was back at home. And once we got married and moved in together, there were a lot of things that we had to figure out because we grew up, for example, doing dishes differently. They're very simple things like that where you would be surprised that it's always the small things that gets on your nerves. And we had to work through a lot of that because we couldn't keep doing a lot of our, for example, chores in our home two different ways because that just didn't make any sense. I think another thing that we really had to focus on was finances. Especially now that we have this home, there are a lot of huge financial decisions that we have to make that I guess before we got engaged we had a lot more financial freedom. Although in a way, like even when we were still in our dating phase, we were pretty sure that we were going to get married one day, so we did start saving up money early on. And yeah, that was probably for a good year leading up to our engagement, so it did help a bit. Next question was, did you have any disagreements when planning the wedding? We didn't really have that many disagreements that I can think of right now. I think the only disagreement that we would have was usually about finances. My husband didn't really care too much about the specifics. He's more of the type that's like, you know, as long as we legally sign the papers at the end of the day, like we could go to the city hall and get married for all he cares. So I think finances was the biggest thing that we would have disagreements on, because you could get flowers for not that much, or you could pay like hundreds to thousands of dollars for flowers, but you're like, how much money do you have? So I think it was just finding the balance between that sometimes caused a bit of tension. At the end of the day, we just wanted to get married because we were sick and tired of long distance as well. So we found vendors that were within our budget. And again, you know, it's all the working together as a team and not me trying to be like, well, I want this because it's our wedding, it's only gonna happen once in our lives. But working together and understanding why we want to spend less on one thing and maybe more on another, and then balance everything that way for budgeting for the wedding. Next question was, what inspired your wedding theme? Now this is interesting because growing up, I was not one of those girls that dreamed of her ideal wedding. I grew up being one of those girls that was like, I don't even know if I'm gonna get married. So when we actually got engaged and we had to start planning the wedding, I literally start from zero. And a lot of my friends were throwing out ideas because they were the type of girls that dreamed of their like ideal wedding since they were young. All I knew was that I wanted a rather minimal wedding. I do this because if you ask my husband, he will say it was not very minimal. And I wanted, you know, our close friends and family to be there. In terms of actual theme, the only thing I really knew was that I wanted the color to be dusty blue. And that is the color that we ended up going with, and that was the color of my bridesmaids dresses and my bouquet. And I also knew that for some of the decor, like we wanted to incorporate eucalyptus, like that sage green color. But honestly, besides that, there wasn't really, I guess, a particular theme if I think about it. I just knew I wanted to keep it more minimal. The next question is, were there any requirements for guests? Example, vaccines, masks, social distancing, etc. So around the time of our wedding, it was when, at least in the city that we got married in, things were starting to be a bit more relaxed. The mandatory mask restriction had been lifted. So for us, we asked that all of our guests at least be fully vaccinated, so they should have gotten both of their COVID vaccines. And we told them that they didn't have to wear masks because the staff that were working weren't going to wear masks anyways. The way that our venue was that we had it at a restaurant and our ceremony was also there. So in a way, that whole area was kind of already just for all of us. So because of that, we told them like, you don't have to wear a mask. Of course, feel free to if that makes you more comfortable, but it will not be enforced since it is just all of our friends. And we basically told everyone as well leading up to the wedding, if you do feel unwell, we just ask that you do not attend. And that was our way of kind of trying to keep control of the whole situation. As for social distancing, we tried to do our best to separate the tables as much as we could, but within each table, it was still, I believe, 10 people per table. So we did what we could. And I am happy to report that after the wedding, no one actually tested positive. So we're very thankful for that. The next question is, how did you plan the wedding when both are not present together? So how we approached this was, one of the first things was we figured out our budget, and then we started tackling categories, what categories we even wanted, and what were our non-negotiables for specific items and specific events. By events, I mean timeline for the day, because we knew that in the morning we wanted to do a tea ceremony, and then it would be the ceremony and then the reception. And through all that, a lot of things can happen. So once we figured out like general items that we wanted, for example, we knew that we needed like bridesmaid dresses, we needed the rings, we needed a cake vendor, photographer, all of that. I would then go out to browse the interwebs and try and find people to be vendors or potential vendors. It did help that one of our friends recently got married, like I think a year before us. So our photographer and videographer and place that I got my bridesmaids dresses from were all recommendations from her. And honestly, it's very overwhelming trying to find vendors. And a part of me kind of gave up because I was so tired by then. I literally just, I think, picked the first 3 that were top rated on like those wedding websites, and I just decided to contact them and go from there. It did help that we already set a budget for specific areas and categories, for example, like how much we wanted to spend for the wedding cake. So if a vendor got back to me and they said that this was their price and it was already out of our budget, I already knew that could not be the vendor for us. And eventually, when I narrowed it down to 2 or 3 potentials, I would then send them to my husband to look over, and if he had a preference, then he would pick one. If not, then I would make the final call. And that's kind of how we planned the entire wedding. I did have a bit more free time because by the time we really started planning everything, I had just quit my previous job, so I had a lot more free time because he was working a full-time job. So it just made sense for me to pick up a lot more of this, and because I think in his opinion and his thoughts is that I would care a bit more about things like decor. And in the end, we got everything that we needed and we stayed within our budget, so I'm really happy about that. Although I also joke about this with my friends, but planning a wedding, even though we wanted it as minimal as we could, was one of the most stressful things that I've ever had to experience. So for any of you who are gonna go through whole wedding planning, or maybe one day go through the whole wedding planning process, I wish you good luck, because even if you think that you want the most minimal wedding, something will happen that is going to make it very stressful. The next question was, how do you incorporate distinctly nerdy things into your wedding and still have it feel romantic? This is a great question because I also talked about this with my husband and we both agreed on this thing. And the answer to that is to use music that are covers. Whether it's covers that someone else did or just instrumentals of songs, you can incorporate a lot of nerdy things, and the people who get it, they'll get you. But to anyone else, it's just gonna sound like a relaxing tune. My example for you guys, don't judge me on this. My example for you guys is that the song that my husband and I walked like out to, our exit song from the ceremony, was NCT Dream's Hello Future. I had found, I believe it was a piano cover, and it was nice and subtle. It just sounded like, you know, a nice piano tune. But for those of my friends who knew the song, they came up to me in the reception and was like, nice song choice. Because in a way, like, Hello Future, we're looking into the future of our marriage. Plus it is a song that both my husband and I like. So we felt like it was a nice song to be using for that part of the ceremony. And another song was that the song that my dad and I danced to was Rosalina's Observatory from Mario Galaxy. Mario Galaxy was a game that my dad and I played a lot when it first came out, so it has a very core memory with me. And if you guys listen to that song, it sounds like a very melodic tune. I believe it was Rosalina's Observatory 2. There was a different one. It sounds a bit more waltz-like as well. So we decided to use that song for our dance, which, if I think about it, it wasn't even really a dance. We were both kind of just laughing and jumping around. And throughout the night, we also had music from, I believe, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. I had Undertale music at some point. We had some K-pop tunes as well. So it's things like that where if people hear it and they know where it's from, they're like, I got you. But to anyone else, it just sounds like a nice song to be playing in the background. Next question is, favorite wedding gift? So we didn't actually ask for any objects as our gifts simply because we weren't sure how the pandemic was going to be by then. Plus, we also had to move all of my stuff here, so we didn't want more items that we had to move. So what ended up happening was we just asked for cash gifts for our wedding, which turned out really good because we told people that the cash gifts that they give us were either going to be going towards funding for our honeymoon or for, you know, everything that has to do with this home. I think one of the best gifts that came out of this wedding though would be the fact that we were able to hang out with so many of our friends and family again after 2 years of not being able to see so many people. There were still a lot of people who couldn't attend because of the pandemic, which was unfortunate, but I'm still thankful for all of the people who were able to come out because it's, in a way, a huge reunion for our friends as well. Because turns out a lot of my friends knew each other and we just didn't know that we were all like mutual friends. So the wedding was actually a huge reunion for everyone. And I think that was a really nice feeling to have, and I would say that was one of the biggest gifts as well. And the last question, we're gonna end this on a fun note. Someone asked me who's my husband's bias in 17. So for those of you who don't know as well, I have the video up on my channel. I took my husband to the 17 concert in Vancouver because we happened to be there for the concert and we were actually there for a family friend's wedding. So he got to experience his first K-pop concert, which was 17. And leading up to that concert, he doesn't really know anyone except for Uzi, and he's only really listened to the Hot/World's album. So he was in for a wild ride. He was very confused at a lot of things, and I think he kind of lost his hearing as well. I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but he brought earplugs to the concert because he's like, I value my hearing. But I think at the end of it, and I asked him too, just to confirm because I told him people wanted to know, he said that his 17 bias is Vernon. It's also funny because there was a girl that was sitting/standing behind him who was screaming for Vernon, and he's just like, what the heck is going on? But he said that his favorite is probably Vernon. I watched Vernon's solo music video for Black Eye with him, and we both agreed it's very like 2000s punk rock-esque, and it's a good song. So yes, his 17 bias for now is Vernon. But that's all of the questions that I got, and I hope that this gave you guys a bit more insight into my thoughts and kind of the whole wedding planning process that we had. Maybe in the future I will do another one of these videos, but until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Once again, if you guys still haven't liked this video, don't forget to do so, and I hope you guys are all taking care of yourself and staying safe out there. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye!